Hello and welcome everyone to Kubernetes new contributor orientation for February 2026. Before we start off, we have a few housekeeping items. Firstly, this meeting is recorded and will be published to YouTube. We have a playlist where we keep all of the meetings that we have for this. We run this about once a month so that you can always find the most recent one. All meetings in the Kubernetes community abide by a code of conduct, which you can find at the link at the bottom of this slide, which you can also find the links to the slides kind of in the in the calendar invite. They're in the GitHub repo. But basically, the code of conduct says be respectful of your fellow speakers and attendees and generally be excellent to each other. Please use chat to ask questions and have discussions throughout the call. There will also be a Q&A section at the end where we encourage you to ask questions verbally if you would like to. A copy of these slides is available on GitHub, and the link is also in the meeting invite. Please note that on GitHub, if you do check out the slides on GitHub, the slides are provided as a PDF, and the links in the deck are not clickable if you look at it on GitHub, but if you download it, they are. We're going to move that to a drive eventually. I don't know if we ever put the drive in the repo. There is a drive. We just got to put it in the repo. Oh, I've got Chris's picture in here. I'll just skip these. I'll just introduce myself verbally. So hello, everyone. I'm Caslin Fields, and I'm a co-chair of the Special Interest Group for Contributor Experience. I'm also a co-lead of the Contributor Communications sub-project in the Special Interest Group for Contributor Experience, and an ambassador of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. And you're going to learn what SIGs and the CNCF and all of those things are, and sub-projects are in this meeting. Oh, I closed it, so I closed my speaker notes. There we go. So here's our agenda for today. The purpose of this meeting is to orient you in the Kubernetes community. That means giving you a sense for how the community works and what your part is or could be within it. We start off these meetings with a presentation to convey information about the community, and then we'll have a Q&A section where you're welcome to any questions that you would like of your hosts today, which I think is just me. We'll see if anyone else from the community joins in. Well, I guess Christopher too. Hearing the questions that you ask can benefit anyone watching the recording, so we do encourage you to ask questions verbally during the Q&A section if you're comfortable doing that. Let's dive in. The Kubernetes community is a very big group of people who work together to create and maintain the Kubernetes project. Here are some numbers to give you a sense for just how big the Kubernetes community is. We track data about our contributors via GitHub and a few other contributor tools, and we collect them in a tool called DevStats. This is basically a big database of information about Kubernetes contributions, and you're welcome to explore it yourself. These stats were pulled in March of 2025, and at that time, we had over 94,000 contributors, over 4.5 million contributions, and all of those contributions are reviewed by just 7.8 thousand people with reviewer privileges. We'll talk more about what a contribution might mean and who a reviewer might be a little bit later in this presentation. I'm checking the chat to make sure that I'm not missing anything. Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining. Now, before we dive deeper into the community, some of you may be unfamiliar with what Kubernetes is and what it does. Kubernetes is an open source container orchestration tool. Open source means that it's made by people around the world, some of whom are paid to work on it, but many of whom are volunteers. And the code of the Kubernetes software is publicly available under an open source license that describes exactly who, when, and how the software and its source code can be used. And the cool thing that Kubernetes does is orchestrate containers. Let's go over what that means. Businesses have many applications they need to run. For example, they may have a payroll application, logistics applications, or a company website. These applications need to run somewhere, so businesses also have a lot of computers to run these applications on. Kubernetes enables businesses to say, hey, Kubernetes, here's the computers I have, and here's the app that I need to run. You can describe various levels of detail about how that application needs to run, or the hardware that it might need, especially like GPUs. We talk a lot about that in the community right now, dynamic resource allocation. Woot woot. Um, and Kubernetes should find a machine that matches those requirements to run that application on for you. It also provides some handy functionality for managing the application while it's running. For example, it can provide some help for the process of updating the application to a new version via rolling updates. And exactly how it does all of this magic is what Kubernetes contributors work to maintain and improve every day. Let's learn more about how contributors build Kubernetes by exploring our community's structure. Kubernetes is an open source project within the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. The CNCF is a nonprofit organization with the stated mission to make cloud native ubiquitous. To that end, they support many open source projects that enable companies to run applications in the cloud. The CNCF provides a variety of guidance and support to its projects, including legal support, codes of conduct, help with logos and copyright, and more. The pyramid below the CNCF in this diagram represents the structure of the Kubernetes community. At the top, probably interfacing with the CNCF the most and presiding over various topics that affect the entire community and project, is the steering committee. This is a body of 7 members who are elected by Kubernetes org members. We'll go over what org membership means shortly. With a project so large, there are many different concepts within the project that need unique skills and knowledge. For example, the way that Kubernetes nodes, where workloads are run, do what they do is one area of expertise. Meanwhile, the challenge of writing and maintaining the Kubernetes documentation needs folks with a different set of expertise. People who work on specific areas of the project gather together in what are called special interest groups, or SIGs. These break up the work of building and maintaining the Kubernetes project into more sensible chunks. Sometimes, however, there are big areas that need attention that are both very significant and cut across SIGs. Sometimes we split those out into what we call working groups. A working group is generally temporary. It's designed to create or to address a specific issue, and then it's meant to disappear as a focus group once that topic is sufficiently addressed by ongoing work within the special interest groups, which are long running. A defining characteristics of working groups is that they generally don't have any code or features that they own, at least not in the long term. Working group work is or will be owned by one of the SIGs that kind of sponsor that working group when that working group dissolves. Unless that working group becomes a SIG, which also happens occasionally. But typically, SIGs are long-lived and own code. Working groups are temporary and do not own code, are meant to address a topical issue or topic. But even the work of one SIG can be quite broad in scope. There can be hundreds of contributors to a single SIG. So SIGs further break down their work into sub-projects. Yes, the slides from the presentation are available on GitHub, which is linked in the calendar invite. The calls for help are probably a little bit outdated on the ones on GitHub, but we'll fix that eventually. Oh, Christopher, you could PR one in. I don't know if you have the link to the slides. We'll fix it later.
I just add the link for the slides. What's to fix?
Powerful. What's the what?
What's to fix? What do you mention that we need to fix?
Oh, we need to PR in a PDF of these slides eventually.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll help you with it later. Currently, there are 24 special interest groups, 7 working groups, and 3 committees in the Kubernetes community. I think this is outdated. I think we retired a working group last week. And also, we probably had new working groups pop up since we did this. But this gives you a general sense of the number of these groups that we have. Some groups operate at a project level, and all other work in the project depends on those groups. Some work happens at the horizontal level, meaning that they have a technical focus that is both deep and broad, and they own core functionality from a software architecture perspective. Vertical groups have deep, specific technical focus that depends on the work of the horizontal groups. And of course, both horizontal and vertical groups depend on the work of project groups. Here's a diagram of all of the SIGs and working groups currently active in the Kubernetes project as of whenever we last updated this slide a couple months ago. Working group serving is the one that just got spun down last week. They claimed success in the goal that they had of making sure that the project was familiar with serving and inference style workloads and working to make sure that those workloads work well on Kubernetes, and they are spinning down. But this calls out just a few so that you can get a sense for what the scope of a SIG is if you're looking for a SIG to work within. To call out a few here, SIGs release and docs are groups whose work you're probably familiar with, and they operate at the project scope because we need docs for everything, and every release is about the whole project. So that's the whole project scope. Though you may not have known it, you've probably encountered the work of SIG API machinery and SIG auth before. Those are horizontal groups, and their work is really important for a wide variety of things within the project. And in vertical groups, you also find lots of familiar concepts like autoscaling, scheduling, networking, and node. You might want to refer back to this diagram later as you're exploring groups to contribute to. Feel free to ask questions about these during the Q&A or in the chat now. But for now, we're going to move along to talk about contribution. Yeah, thank you, Christopher, for adding the link to the slides. Now you've learned the basics of how the community is structured, let's start exploring where you fit into all of this. First off, let's briefly explore where you might want or why you might want to contribute. There are many reasons people contribute to the Kubernetes community. For some, their job requires contributing. There are also contributors who work with the community on a purely volunteer basis. There are also those who are somewhere in the middle, like me. I typically do a little bit of this for work, but a lot more in my free time. There are also those who are, I already said that. So why do so many people contribute without getting paid? They may want to grow specific skills for their resume, or maybe they want to meet people working in the industry. Maybe they just think the technology is super cool and they want to dive deep and help build it. Or sometimes folks just like being part of a community of people who are all working towards similar goals. You should think carefully about why you want to contribute. As you get more engaged with the community, you'll get more out of it as you can clearly tell people what you want to do. If others know who you are and what you want and what you can do, they can more easily help you find work and opportunities and connections that will most benefit you. Regardless of why you're interested in contributing, you're probably wondering what it means to be a contributor. To answer the question of what it means to be a contributor, let's first explore what might count as a contribution. The truth is that any work you do to support the Kubernetes project is a welcome and valued contribution to the community. That sounds broad and vague, but it's important. There's a lot of work contributors do behind the scenes to make this project run, and it's certainly not all writing code and making pull requests on GitHub. That said, it can certainly help to have some examples. Here are a few you might not have thought of, and some that you might have thought of. For example, did you start off by posting a hello message in the Kubernetes new contributor channel in the Kubernetes Slack? That's a contribution. Have you commented on an issue or a proposal for a new feature to share your thoughts or opinions? That's a contribution. Even watching or attending this meeting right now is a contribution. So pat yourselves on the back for contributing today. As a community, we try our best to acknowledge and appreciate contributions to the community in many forms. But if so many vague and varied things can count as a contribution, then what does it mean to be a contributor? There are varying levels of being a contributor. You might remember our slide earlier where we mentioned contributors and reviewers. This slide dives into more detail on what those terms mean. Starting at the bottom, anyone can be a contributor. If you do any of the things we just mentioned on the previous slide and many more, you're already a contributor. Congratulations! If you contribute to the community in any way, then you might be what we call a non-member contributor. That means that you pop into the community and contribute, probably in small, disconnected ways. But if you want to get really involved with the community, you might want to go for org membership. An org member refers to a member of the Kubernetes organization on GitHub. Being an org member gives you higher privileges to interact with the tools contributors use to do their work, like our Prow bot in GitHub, which helps us apply labels and configure issues using GitHub comments. Having org membership is a sign that you're an active, engaged contributor who intends to contribute in more structured ways within the community. You're not just picking up a single issue or asking a one off question. You're probably developing expertise in a certain area of the project. You might be contributing to one or more subprojects or SIGs in consistent, measurable ways. So you'll be ready to become a Kubernetes org member when the contributors that you work with regularly are familiar with your work and will vouch for you as sponsors on your request for org membership. Beyond becoming an org member, there are increasing levels of trust, ownership, and responsibility that you could choose to pursue. Once you've been engaged with the project for a while, you might have enough knowledge to help review contributions or pull requests from other contributors in the area where you've developed expertise. Eventually, you might be trusted enough to have the final say on whether some code is merged or a contribution is accepted and displayed on something like the Kubernetes.io website. Then you would be an approver. If you become a strong expert in a specific area who is highly trusted and regarded for your expertise, you might take on new responsibilities. You might become the person others come to with questions, and you might lead triage sessions or other work for the area. At that point, you might be a sub-project owner. If you're an expert who starts dealing with things in that area, you might also take on responsibility for various resources within that area and how they relate to other parts of the projects. For example, you might take on responsibility for the README file that defines a sub-project, which is where people would go to learn about it. And you might become the contact person who triages requests from other parts of the project. At that point, you might be a sub-project lead. If you're leading a whole sub-project, that's a considerable chunk of work within a SIG. You're probably interacting with and collaborating with leads of other sub-projects, and you're probably developing a pretty strong sense of the mission, objectives, and ongoing work of the special interest group as a whole. At that point, you might become a chair or tech lead for the entire special interest group. If you remember our community structure diagram from earlier, you might wonder if becoming a member of the steering committee would be the next step on this ladder. But steering is an elected position. You can actually run for steering at any point, but you'll be more likely to get elected if other contributors know about your work and have seen the kinds of work that you're doing. So I'd recommend getting more involved before going for steering. Any tips on how we can transition from non-member to member? Which I could have saved for the Q&A, but I'll go ahead and mention it now. So for non-members who want to become org members, the biggest thing is making sure that you're working with some existing contributors, because on your request for org membership, there's two things that you need. One, you need some examples of your work. That can be GitHub pull requests. It can also be like docs. For example, in the contributor communications team, we track a lot of our work in docs. So it can be a variety of artifacts, but you need some kind of artifact showing that you're doing work in the community. And then you need at least two people who are active contributors who can pop in and say, yes, this person is doing this kind of work. They're going to continue doing this kind of work, and they will benefit from having org membership. So make sure that you have contributions that have some kind of artifact that you can link to, and that you are working with folks who will vouch for you. Yeah, and Christopher has added his take there too. Thank you, Christopher. We're going to hop on. This ladder might seem like the one true path in contribution, but I want to remind you that there is no single path for your contributor journey. Most contributors end up contributing in multiple areas of the project. Some people even develop ownership in different SIGs at the same time. For example, we have a lead in the COM subproject, which is in SIG Contribex, who is also a lead in SIG Release. Um, just because you're learning and contributing in one SIG doesn't mean you can't check out another one. Remember, most contributors are at least partially volunteers. Almost everyone contributing is doing it because they love it. So look around and find what you love and just do that. We need help everywhere. So if you're inspired by that area, you're more likely to get involved and stick around. And that's what we really need to. Now you know the basics of how the community is structured and how you might fit into it. As we've established, you might already be a non member contributor. But if you want to do more to contribute, let's explore where you can start. The fastest way to learn and make yourself useful will be to find a SIG that suits your interests and just start getting involved there. That might not mean immediately picking up an issue and writing code. Often, getting involved means attending meetings, reading notes and existing issues, and just generally starting to get a feel for what that group does. To stay up to date with what's going on in the community, you'll want to join the Slack and Kubernetes developers Google groups. These two tools are the primary ways that the community does asynchronous work or receives announcements. Let's explore how you can learn about a SIG and how you can find groups that are relevant to your interests. So where can you start learning? First, check out the Kubernetes/community repo on GitHub. In this repo, you can find folders containing information about each SIG and working group. When you click on a SIG's folder in the community repo, it'll show you that folder's README. At the top of this file, you'll find a brief summary of what that SIG does, and likely a link to their more detailed team charter. That'll give you a broad, high-level idea of the SIG's work. Below the summary of the group, you'll find information about when the group meets, and attending meetings is often a great way to learn about who's in the group, what they're currently working on, and how they do their work. Attending meetings is a great way to start getting to know the group of people that you're interested in working with, and for them to get to know you. You'll also find information about the SIG's leadership. Most SIGs have both a concept of chairs and tech leads. These leaders have about the same level of trust and responsibility, but they typically own different types of tasks in supporting the SIG. Chairs tend to do more project management type work for the SIG, while tech leads tend to do more architectural leadership like managing repos and certain kinds of technical decisions and processes. Each SIG defines what those roles mean to them, and each leader will be a little bit different. You'll also find information on how to contact folks within the SIG. Most SIGs in Kubernetes do a lot of asynchronous communication in their channel on the Kubernetes Slack, which you can join by visiting slack.k8s.io. I'm going to put that in the chat. Slack.k8s.io. If you haven't joined Slack, join Slack. Each SIG also has a mailing list. Important announcements for all contributors to a SIG will go out to their mailing list. The mailing list will also be invited to all of the SIG meetings via Google Calendar. You'll also find information about where to find issues and PRs related to that SIG, and other information like the GitHub teams that are part of that SIG. Also, every contributor should join the Kubernetes Dev Google group, which we call affectionately KDev. This mailing list is the primary communication channel for important contributor information. Checking out each SIG's folder will show you lots of information about that specific SIG. But what if you want to find information about all of the SIGs because you don't know which one you want to be in? The community maintains a contributor website at k8s.dev, and within k8s.dev, we have a page with information about all the public community meetings. So go to k8s.dev/calendar. I'll put that in the chat. There we go. To see a list of all the public meetings. Clicking on one will bring up a new window for you to add the meeting to your own calendar. This can be a great way to get a sense for which groups meet at which times and which ones might work for you. Now you know how the community is structured, where you could fit in, and how to start learning more. You might also want to know if there's any actively open work that you could pick up and become a part of. We reach out to the SIG leads each month to ask them to share any current opportunities they would like for you, prospective contributors, to know about. On this slide, you can see evergreen opportunities. These are opportunities for work that are basically always available or which are available on a regular cadence. So right now we've got meeting note taking. That's my favorite. I love telling people that you could just do this. So if you find a SIG meeting that's at a convenient time for you and you want to check it out, most SIG meetings ask for a volunteer to take notes. The role of the note taker is to follow along with what's happening in the discussion during the meeting as best you can and to take notes so that if someone missed the meeting, they can follow up with the notes later. This is really, really important, really valuable, and anyone can hop in and do it. Plus, it's a great excuse to ask questions, to be like, hey, I'm trying to take a note on this, and I have no idea what you just said or what those words mean. Can you explain a little bit more? So, highly recommend taking notes if you join a meeting and are confused, because you'll probably be confused at your first few. Typically in SIG Contribex, we have the SIG Spotlight blog series, where we have members of the contributor communications group interview SIG leads about what their SIG does, and then they write a blog. And the idea is, they might not know anything about those SIGs going into it, but through doing these interviews, they'll learn what the SIG does, and then they post a blog about it, and other people can learn what those SIGs do. However, we have an issue right now where we don't have enough blog reviewers, which is owned by SIG Docs primarily. So if you're interested in reviewing blogs for us, there's a big need for that. We are still doing the Spotlight blog series to some extent. Join us in the comms meeting sometime if you want to talk about that every Friday, 8 a.m. Pacific. But also, if you want to be a reviewer, that would be very much appreciated. Another one is Maintainer Summit staff. This kind of went away for a while and now it's back. So that meeting is starting right now. And Christopher and I are missing it. So 2 times per year for KubeCon EU and KubeCon North America, the community has an extra day before the conference starts, where the open source projects within the CNCF, the maintainers of those projects all get together and talk about things that are relevant to them. So that happens twice per year for Kubernetes. All Kubernetes org members are welcome to attend this event. You have to register. So if you're an org member who wants to attend, please register. Registration's open now for EU. But all org members are welcome to attend. So it's really important that we get communications out about that. So that's one of the lead roles for this. We have one person leading comms. They're making sure that we're getting comms written, that folks are reviewing those so that they look accurate and are okay to go out, and making sure that those go out on the right platforms, because we send things out on Slack, we send things out on email, we send them out on social media. And then website, we have the website lead for Maintainer Summit here, Christopher, who has been updating kates.dev with information about the Maintainer Summit. And then there's another event at KubeCon called Meet and Greet that we also have a lead for. That's basically the summit staff roles. Christopher, did you want to talk about website and any help you need there at all?
We actually are doing like modifications, and we have some issues that we would like some volunteers. So yeah, there's definitely work for both website and especially comms. So whatever you feel more interested, just join our meetings. I'll join the summit stuff Slack channel, and yeah, feel free to drop a message if you would like to join.
Or the Contributor Summit Slack channel. We should monitor that one too. And sadly, Ray, who was here from SIG Docs, just dropped off because he had to go to the Maintainer Summit meeting. But to go over what's going on in SIG Docs a little bit, for one, blog reviewing. Please review blogs. Another one, they have a program to help folks get familiar with how to handle our PR review process. So check out their PR Wrangler Shadow program. That's linked in these slides if you grab them off of GitHub. Oh yes, and so we have new contributor orientation here. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And In SIG Docs, they run their own new contributor meeting every month on the first Tuesday at 10:30 UTC. So Docs is a great place for new contributors to get involved. So definitely check out their new contributor meeting as well if you're interested in their group. And then SIG Architecture did have a particular call for help. Oh, just kind of in general, we should probably take this one off. But as you've probably heard, open source projects tend to be overwhelmed with the volume of contributions and things going on. As we saw earlier, the number of reviewers is far, far smaller than the number of contributions that we're getting. And in the era of AI, we get, honestly, I was in the SIG chairs and tech leads meeting last week, and someone asked, are you seeing an overwhelming number of garbage AI driven contributions? And people said no, actually. The issue is that we're always overwhelmed. So we're just as overwhelmed as we've always been with the PRs.
Yeah, in our meetup in New York City, like with the 10-year anniversary of the CNCF, they were saying that now you don't even know if a human was also opening that pull request, right? So that's another philosophical thing that we're also
Yeah.
like going through.
Humans can make just as bad of mistakes as AIs can. And they do. And we see it all the time in our project because we're so big. Fun fact, because I'm sure folks are interested in this topic, because I know I am. They did say that we are having an issue with AI written comments. Some people have AI write comments on pull requests that are really long, don't have particularly interesting or useful information in them. And so the reviewers, they try to actually read these comments, and they're reading like a 3-page long comment that has nothing useful in it. They're like, these are inhibiting my workflow. And also, they said that we're seeing more attacks on our CI/CD system than usual, which is very interesting. Moving on. Yeah. Okay. So that was evergreen opportunities. Another one that I don't have in there that I really should add in there is SIG release. So we do 3 releases per year of Kubernetes, and for the release team, we have a team of folks who drive every release. There's leads of various aspects of the release, and those leads have shadows. And the shadow program is really nicely structured. It's one of folks' favorite opportunities to get involved, but it is very competitive these days. So they always put out a form for shadow volunteers. You're more likely to get selected as a shadow volunteer if you have some experience in other parts of the project, so you know how like RPRs work and stuff. So I highly recommend getting involved with the project in other ways, but also watch out for those opportunities to be a release team shadow, which come up 3 times per year. Not open right now, but just so you know. So the section beyond this is tasks with skill requirements. Often, the community needs help with important tasks that require certain skills to complete. If a task mentions required skills, that usually means that the group doesn't have someone who can teach you those skills. So ask questions before picking up a task with skill requirements. So that's what we're going to go into next here. Is there anything else I want to say about this from my notes? If you're coming to the Kubernetes community with existing skills like certain programming languages or specific technical skills like Linux networking or expertise in a specific like cloud provider, because we use cloud providers to run our testing infrastructure. So if you know Azure, we need expertise in Azure. That was one that someone asked for several months ago. So if you have specific skills, these can be a good opportunity for you. So first off here, we've got SIG etcd. So etcd was part of Kubernetes, and then it wasn't, and now it's back. It was its own project within the CNCF for a bit. But they rejoined Kubernetes because of the structure of our community that we've been talking about here, our contributor ladder, these new contributor orientation calls. They have a better pipeline into their community now, and they were struggling without enough maintainers to maintain the project before they rejoined Kubernetes. And now they've had a successful mentoring cohort, and they have a pretty vibrant group right now. But a few things that they point out here. So join their channel, SIG etcd. There's a doc on how to contribute to etcd, and there's a deep dive overview of the technology on YouTube if you want to check that out. They have a new docs subproject. They have their own website since they were their own project for a while. And technically, other projects can use etcd. It's just at the core of Kubernetes design. So it works well within our community. But they have their own docs in case anyone else wants to use etcd outside of Kubernetes, because you can do that. So they have a special sub-project meeting for that. That might be a good way to get started. And then they do good first issues. We'll talk more about good first issues in a little bit, and about how they're a trap. But if you want to check them out anyway, here's information on how you can find those. And like we said, these links are in the slides, which actually we need to update that. But these are probably in some of the slides that are in GitHub. If not, we'll update that shortly. Other new opportunities, SIG UI. Yes, so the Kubernetes dashboard has been retired recently, and Headlamp is the new tool that we're recommending to use as a UI for Kubernetes. So that's an exciting thing that's happening in the project right now, affecting lots of people. People have lots of opinions. So if you want to get involved with that, head over to SIG UI and check out what's going on there. In SIG autoscaling, Carpenter provisions compute resources for Kubernetes clusters. Why do we have something about Carpenter? Carpenter's its own separate project. I think this was AI generated. I'll fix this later. But if you want to work on Carpenter, Carpenter is an open source project for autoscaling the Kubernetes cluster. SIG autoscaling probably does some stuff that enables the stuff that Carpenter does, but also we work on horizontal pod autoscaling. There's some different types of autoscaling within Kubernetes that we have to worry about here. So check out what's going on in SIG autoscaling. SIG API machinery. New contributors are welcome. They have their meetings on the first Tuesday of every month. They have good first issues. A particular one they call out here is enabling declarative validation for APIs. Some folks I work at Google, and some of the contributors who work at Google were telling me about this recently. They said it's really important. So that might be a good thing to learn about if you're interested in it. Yeah, so all of this is about declarative validation. So check that information out if you want to learn what that is. I still need to learn what it is myself. I'm working on a blog post with those folks. In SIG Contribex, website maintenance, we have Christopher here who's been working on the website. If you have familiarity with Hugo Doxy, those skills are really useful in working on the website. Mentoring program management. This is a call for help that's been open for a long time. So we have a mentoring subproject in SIG Contribex. The primary purpose of the mentoring subproject, well, it has several different initiatives within it. One of them is making sure that Kubernetes is involved in third-party mentoring programs like LFX and Google Summer of Code. These are mentoring programs that are run by organizations that are not the project, that they actually pay the mentees. So people apply to be mentees, and they get matched up with an open source project that needs help, and they can get paid for a few weeks to work on that project. So it's really important for us to be involved with those programs. It's a really great opportunity for folks to learn and get involved with the projects, but we have to submit projects to those programs in order to get those mentees. And so leads within the project need to know that those are happening in order to do that. So there's some program management that's needed there. Another thing that's the mentoring subproject does is run mentoring cohorts. So the different SIGs will we've got lots of contributors, of course, but very few reviewers. So if you want to take a set of contributors who are doing a great job of contributing and move them up the ladder, give them reviewer skills or approver skills, or maybe get some new SIG chairs in. We help folks set up mentoring programs to help folks move up the ladder. And then in terms of new contributors, we do new contributor orientation, which you're familiar with. So if you're interested in helping the project take advantage of mentoring opportunities, please let us know. We could use help there. Another one is Electo. Electo is our homegrown software to run elections for the community. I mentioned that steering is an elected position. We have our own software that we use to do that. It's primarily written in Python with some Flask. So if you know those tools, we could use some help maintaining that project. SIG docs, blog reviews, we talked about that already. Localization, if you speak another language fluently and can read and write in another language fluently. There are groups that work specifically on the localization of the Kubernetes docs, so that can be a great way to get involved. In SIG testing, our ProwBot I mentioned earlier is what we use to manage a lot of our PRs. It also handles our CI/CD. And so that's a really important tool that could use some help. Hydrophone is a sub project of Kubernetes that's used for conformance testing, for making sure that your Kubernetes cluster that you've deployed is conformant with Kubernetes standards. So that's a cool project as well. SIG Network Gateway API is a really cool area to work in. SIG Release wants some help with creating release automation. And in SIG Security, they do audits and things to understand the security profile of Kubernetes. They release reports. They help address CVEs and important security vulnerabilities. So if you're interested in security stuff, check that area out. And that's what I've got in terms of open calls for help. And at this point, I like to go over the common contribution pitfalls. We only have about 15 minutes left. I've run a little bit slow today. And folks usually enjoy this section, so I'll go through this really quickly. The good first issue trap. A common contribution pitfall is falling into what I call the good first issue trap. The scenario goes something like this. You're a new prospective contributor and you're excited to make your mark on the community, and we're excited to have you. You find an issue with the good first issue label on GitHub and you think, great, I'll claim this issue, write some code, and I'll have contributed to Kubernetes. Back up a step. Once you pick up that good first issue, how are you going to complete it? I mentioned earlier that the Kubernetes community uses tools like our ProwBot to help us manage issues. Are you familiar with it? It's fine if you're not. Maybe you'll just start writing code, and those reviewers, approvers, and owners that we mentioned earlier will appear to make sure that the issue has the right labels and stuff on it. Once you've written your code, you'll also need to get their attention to review your PR. Remember, there are a lot more contributors than there are reviewers. When you make your PR, reviewers and approvers will be automatically assigned. But what if there are issues in your code? You might need to go back and forth with the reviewers on GitHub. Are you comfortable using comments and pull requests to see that work through to completion? Most good first issues that get picked up by new non-member contributors never make it to completion. The code never gets checked in. And then the community has all these stale issues and PRs sitting around for work that we really needed done, but the person got lost and ended up abandoning their contribution halfway through. Then those reviewers, approvers, and owners that I mentioned earlier have to go through the process again of triaging that issue and saying, oh, this has been open for 3 months and this person hasn't done anything on it and we really need it done. So we're going to kick this person off of the issue and reopen it so that we can try to get someone else to do it. And so then that takes up more of the reviewers and approvers' time that they could have been using interacting with you, trying to help you get that PR done, but they have to go review all of the other ones that were not completed and reopen them. You can avoid getting stuck in this trap by joining a SIG and sticking with it. When you know the people that you're working with and the goals that you're working toward, you can be a valuable part of not just doing the work, but making sure that the work gets done. Oh, I went backward. So this was a lot of information today, and this is just the orientation meeting. When you join your first SIG meeting, you're probably going to be very overwhelmed. A lot of SIG meetings exist for active existing contributors to collaborate with each other on active in progress work. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't join as a new contributor. That's a great way to learn and to learn faster by joining those meetings and watching the processes in action. But it might mean that you feel left out and lost your first few times. Don't be afraid to ask questions by speaking up, asking in chat, or asking in the SIG or subproject Slack later. The Kubernetes community is a big, diverse place. It's diverse in terms of people, skills, technologies, and so much more. It might take a while for you to find the place that clicks with you. There might be a particular SIG or subproject where you find more opportunities to build the skills or connections that are most important to you. Don't forget that you can move around and explore other groups within the project. Most contributors end up contributing in multiple areas, and many find a particular area that they want to go deep on. No two contributors have the same journey, so you'll need to explore to find the best places for you. Regardless of which areas you explore, we need your help, and we are glad that you are here. We covered a lot today, and getting started in the community means learning a lot of the basic tools, processes, structures, and more. Check out these links and refer to them often as you grow. And that's what we've got today. You learned some of the basics about how the Kubernetes community works and how you might grow as a contributor. So if you have any questions, please unmute and ask or ping in the chat. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Hi, Kathleen. You mentioned that you need Azure for certain project. And
Yes.
can I ask you please to explain how Azure or any
Yeah. Cloud providers.
profit-driven platform can
Yeah.
be, or like no knowledge of those platforms can be valuable for contribution into open source?
Yeah. So the one that I was particularly thinking of when I mentioned that is so to build Kubernetes, you need computers.
Yeah, you
And
rented them.
so, yes.
Absolutely. Sorry.
So, no, good. Um, so as you might imagine, it takes a lot of money to run the Kubernetes open source project. So every time there's a new PR, there's a label that you can use in Prow that is okay to test. So that tells our bot that like this looks at least okay to run through the infrastructure that we have to pay for. So the various cloud providers typically give us a whole bunch of credits because we are an open source project under a nonprofit foundation. So we don't make any income to pay for all of these computers. But because all of the cloud providers, have Kubernetes services that they sell, they give us a bunch of cloud credits on their platforms that we can use to run those tests. So we have a whole bunch of credits on Google. We have them on AWS. We have them on Oracle. Oracle keeps bragging about how many credits they give us. And we have infrastructure that we run on Azure to test parts of the project when we're developing it. So that's the main area that I was thinking of is our infrastructure that we use for our CI/CD systems. But there is also, I think it still exists. I keep wondering if we're going to spin that one down, but there is SIG Cloud Provider. We used to have within the Kubernetes open source code itself, cloud provider specific code. We did a big thing last year, 2 years ago, where we removed over 1 million lines of it. So there's not as much of that anymore, but the testing infrastructure for our CI/CD systems are the main one that I was thinking of.
You mentioned the clouds, but is there any way to work with NeoCloud?
Neoclouds,
Yeah,
like
like
non
mm,
AWS,
like
not the big ones.
Navius or CoreWeave or something like this.
I do think we have some stuff with. You'd have to check in with the folks who run that infrastructure. Like I mentioned, we
Thank
don't have any money to pay for these things ourselves. So it's kind of up to the charity of those companies if they've given us anything to work with.
thank you very much, Kaislan.
Mhm. And Frank has had a hand up.
Yes, thank you. So I want to initially focus in on documentation, and I built the CLA. What is it here? The licensing agreement thing, the PR
Mhm.
for that, and I think it might have merged, but if not, it should merge very shortly. My question is, does that CLA cover only documentation, or would I have to, or is it global across all SIGs, or how does this work? Oh, it's global.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep.
Oh,
The CLA should work for anything you want to do within Kubernetes. I think it's also not specific to Kubernetes. I think it's CNCF wide. I'm not
Linux
sure. Christopher, have you
Foundation.
done it recently?
oh, okay. And then I'm looking at the actual PR in the contributor playground, and it still says open. Um, that's not that is technically not merged. How does this work, or is it does this PR always stay open, or is it a lack of management resources to actually get it formally purpled and merged? Oh, okay. I guess I figured it out just now.
Yeah, we do it
Okay.
at least once a week, I think. It's a job of the tech leads in SIG Contribex. So I'm a chair
Okay.
in tech lead, or I'm a chair in SIG Contribex, and I just had a meeting with the tech leads before this. So they go through and approve
Okay.
those usually about once a week.
Thank you. And my last statement, I think Chris or someone was asking which is the PR, and it's number 2422, if that helps who was ever wondering. All right. Thank you so much for this. This is very helpful. Thank you.
In community, I assume. Is that where those go? Yeah. Playground. No, playground. Right. Thank you. Christopher, we'll see if he can find it. And then I see that there was a comment in chat. I and my college friends are willing to contribute collaboratively to Minikube. Love that you're using Minikube. We've started contributing to this repo. Do you have any suggestions for Minikube major changes? That would be a question for the Minikube folks. Which SIG is Minikube in? I don't remember off the top of my head. Who can find it first? But I know that there's a contributor within Google who does a lot of work on Minikube, and I chat with him occasionally. I know there's lots of cool active work happening within Minikube. But you'd have to ask the folks who are working actively on it to learn more. Darn, it doesn't say on the first page of their website. Minikube has its own website, but it is part of one of the SIGs. I'd have to look to
It's
see.
under the
Oh,
cluster life cycle SIG.
oh, good find.
And if you want to join them, check our pits.dev calendar. And yeah,
For
I
SIG
see that.
cluster lifecycle, or there might be a Minikube specific meeting too.
Oh,
I'm not sure. They probably do.
yeah, they have exactly. There are SIG specific SIG meetings and Minikubes meetings. Yeah. Thanks, Kathleen.
Another question here. Is there any work related to Oracle Cloud? Yes. Oracle Cloud, as I mentioned, keeps bragging about how many credits they give us for our CI/CD infrastructure. So the same group that runs our infrastructure, I think that's SIG Architecture. Is that? I know Mario works on it. So I think it's SIG Architecture that runs. If we looked up Prow, I guess that was in the slides. If I go back to the Prow slide, it should say which SIG. API machinery. Why did we talk about Carpenter there? I guess the Prow call for help was in Evergreen for some reason. Yeah, that's in SIG architecture. Yeah. So I think if you want Oracle Cloud, Azure, if you have specific cloud provider expertise, SIG architecture might be the place to ask what's currently going on there and if they need any specific help. Any other questions? We have 2 minutes left. Is there a way I can reach out to Google Summer of Code specific mentors in the community to learn more about how to approach contributions for the program and prepare for writing project proposals? Ooh, you're going to be a mentee in Google Summer of Code this year. Ways to prepare for Google Summer of Code. So as we mentioned, Google Summer of Code is a separate program run by Google, which I also work for, but I'm not specifically involved with the Google Summer of Code, but I do work closely with the folks who run it. So I could ask them. But in terms of the Kubernetes community, I imagine through Google Summer of Code, you'll get matched up with an opportunity, which may be in Kubernetes and may not be. I'm not sure if the leads of the projects get any say in which mentee they get, or if that's totally handled by the Google Summer of Code folks. So I'm not sure. I would check out the Google Summer of Code repo. I think there's probably a repo and any documentation about the program that I could find. And if you can find documentation of the open projects for Google Summer of Code this time, like I know for LFX, we post all of the projects from Kubernetes into a repo that's publicly available. So you can like go find which projects are available and who submitted them. You could go chat with those folks through that route. But I don't know if Google Summer of Code works the same way. Do all projects have SIGs, or is it just Kate's because it's such a huge project? It's that one. Yeah, each open source project is so different. I have a book here behind me, the red one on this shelf, is Working in Public by Nadia Egbal, and we're at time, so I'll make this quick. But it's a book about open source, and my favorite thing about it was learning how different other open source projects are. They all work very differently. So SIGs are a Kubernetes concept. We are pretty influential, so there may be other projects who have picked up that architecture, but we made it for ourselves and we like it. And we are at time. So thank you so much for joining today, everyone. I hope that you all find groups within the project to contribute to, and I look forward to chatting with you all on Slack. Feel free to DM me. I'm around and I'm happy to answer questions. Thanks,
you, Kathleen.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.